I think when a lot of people think high performance, they think it means more, 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 less sleep, go, go, go. However, that's actually not true. Understanding the neurology of the brain and the physiology of the body, the old saying, slow and steady wins the race, is true. Sustainable high performance comes from the ability to produce results while protecting your energy.
If you're like most leaders, you're facing an increasingly difficult business landscape, which is making leadership even more challenging. The popular narrative is develop a more resilient mindset. The reality is, exactly how do I do that? I'm Jane Singer, and welcome back to A Seat at the Table, where we sit down each week with industry leaders, innovators, authors, and entrepreneurs to find out what's working, what's not, and what we might want to try ourselves. Today we're joined by Courtney Seard, a senior executive advisor and leadership development expert who helps organizations build future-ready, high-performing leaders. Thank you so much for joining us here today on A Seat at the Table. I'm really excited to have you on the show. I think that what you are talking about today is something that so many people who are listening to this program will really be able to relate to.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy and excited to be here with you. I'm incredibly passionate about what I do, and I am excited to share to, give some tips and techniques to other individuals out there.
Yeah, excellent. Well, let's start off with, what would a sustainable high performance really look like in today's high pressure environment? There's a lot of questions about that. A lot of things sound good in theory, but are not easy to execute on. So perhaps you could share what you see around that.
Absolutely. I think when a lot of people think high performance, they think it means more, 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 less sleep, go, go, go. However, that's actually not true. Understanding the neurology of the brain and the physiology of the body, the old saying, slow and steady wins the race, is true. Sustainable high performance comes from the ability to produce results while protecting your energy. The best leaders know how to regulate their energy, protect their focus, recover strategically, and stay calm under pressure. And that has nothing to do with go, go, go. That has
Mm.
everything to do with understanding who you are, knowing yourself, being mindful, giving yourself grace, and realizing that once you start to institute these things in your life, you're going to recover faster. You are actually working with your brain and your nervous system to optimize, and therefore you're able to get a lot more done in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because we do get caught up in that sense that you have to be constantly on the go, always moving at high speed. Otherwise, you're not being productive. And we overlook the fact that sometimes you have to slow down in order to be more efficient.
Absolutely. As I like to say, do not mistake motion for movement.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
of
well
times people
said.
are moving around and they're so busy and they're not actually moving forward or going anywhere. And that comes from slowing down, being strategic. Again, I'll say it consistently, haste makes waste,
Mm.
slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up. Now, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see leaders make when they're trying to lead under pressure or in hybrid environments?
So, a lot of times they will first off mistake accessibility with leadership. So, just because your door is open or you're accessible doesn't mean you're a leader.
Mm.
They generally will end up micromanaging, are constantly online, overscheduling meetings. And also with their direct reports, they'll overschedule meetings, but also be the first ones to cancel those meetings.
Oh.
And that doesn't build trust, it actually
Mm.
creates exhaustion. And when a lot of leaders are under pressure, they actually try to tighten control instead of increasing clarity and communication. Communication is everything. Most, I would say, friction that we have is because of miscommunication and individuals not taking the time to understand how they communicate under stress. So I'd say one of the big mistakes is understanding that their energy system creates the culture. So when they are communicating under stress, how do you not say, well, I was just stressed?
Mm.
It's learning the techniques to, I would say, combat that, to have the emotional leadership resilience to not be stressed, right? To have that pause. It's also not knowing how to properly give feedback.
Mm.
So often people harp and don't tell people actually the action, the activity, what they want that person to develop. They'll just say over and over again what didn't work, harp on and on and on, but never develop a person. And I always say, tell a person what you want them to do because the human, the body, is a robot designed to do what the brain, the computer, programs it. And the computer program is all programmed by language and communication. And another thing that leaders also make a mistake is they don't allow and provide people the space to be psychologically safe.
Mm.
So leadership truly is about energy and emotion transfer. And teams absorb your energy because 55% of how we communicate is our physiology. So regardless of what you say, your tone is going to give it away and your body language. It's not knowing how to properly communicate and maintain their, I would say, poise.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And if you could possibly give us some ideas, how might somebody who is under pressure and feels like, control is running away from them, what are some ideas that you would suggest to them that they could sort of do to get themselves calmed down, back on track?
One of the first things is your breath. It's
Okay.
so contrite. You hear it all the time. However, again, it's what's happening neurologically in my system. When we're
Mm.
stressed, our cortisol increases. When we are stressed, we're not breathing, we're not getting oxygen, we're going into fight or flight, we're not able to be creative, and everything spirals out of control. So, my first piece of information is start breathing. When you notice moments of stress are coming in, relax your body and begin to breathe deeply from your diaphragm. And I would say, practice allows you to be prepared in those moments. I'm not saying start breathing only when things are stressful. Institute these micro learnings in your everyday, right? Another thing is examine your sleep. When people are stressed, there is a 30% increase on their cortisol level, meaning you're going to spiral out a lot faster. You are not emotionally in the place to hold space. So, your rest. What are you eating? Are you keeping track of how the foods that you eat are actually impacting your body? And I also say another thing leaders can do is start to study how you respond and when is your magic moments. When are your magic moments? When are you so focused? When are you so full of energy? Utilize those moments, block those off. Those are your productivity moments. Those are some of the things that leaders can do to start to create space so that they have that, I would say, um, emotional elasticity and resilience. And, I also am a big believer that leaders, in order to create more space for themselves and de stress, start mindfully listening,
Mm.
not listening to respond, not listening to solve, not listening to hear, but mindfully listening because what will begin to happen is one, their nervous system will calm down because you're breathing, you're engaging the other person. And when you are mindfully listening, what ends up happening is you begin to open up what we know is our proprioception, what we're
Mm.
able to perceive. And that allows us to relax. And again, we are able to create rapport and harmony with others and create rapport and harmony with ourselves, turning the temperature down rather than turning it up.
I think that's really interesting. And I like the idea that you've suggested that people start to practice these things before they're in the thick of a situation, so that when you get into that situation, I don't want to say it's on autopilot, but you're not scrambling to think, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Breathe, breathe, listen, breathe. You sort of already have had a few practice sessions on a regular basis, and it's easier to sort of switch into that mode, a little bit easier than if you're just trying to remember what am I supposed to do now.
Absolutely. What I like to say is that I don't like the saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not
Right.
true. A dog, as well as a human, we have neuroplasty and neurons that wire together, fire together. It's muscle memory. Anything that you do is a habit. We're a series of habits. You are a habit, or you are trained to quickly respond like a fast twitch machine going off the handle. Start to train yourself, build that muscle to have that again, emotional flexibility and resilience. And for me, it's something that I consistently train. I do micro moments of 5-minute journaling in the morning.
Mm.
I do breath work. I do walking. Another thing that's great for, I would say, a leader to do when you're stressed out, get up, go outside, and go for a walk.
Yes, 100%.
Walking is the movement of walking is a bilateral movement on the brain, and it
Mm.
actually creates processing, right? It brings and gives soothing neurotoxins. Now, if you're having a challenge with someone at work, go on a walk and a talk. Have you noticed when you walk and talk with someone, it seems that things, whatever friction was there, was gone, and there's so much more lightness? Because just in that movement in and of itself, it creates more space and it allows the brain to actually receive more of what is happening. So I like to talk a lot about, we never received manuals for how our brains or our bodies work. Yet it's literally our complete operating system, right? So a lot of how we show up, we have no idea why we're showing up. I'm a firm believer in know yourself, but also understand your structure and your system. And then you can optimize yourself for change because not everyone's the same. Not everyone is a morning person, right? I have a couple of clients that I coach who are there. I'm so high productive between 3 and 5. And I'm like, well, if your schedule allows you from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., bust that work out. And if you need to take a nap from 6 to 8, take a nap. You have that flexibility and affordability. Don't get caught in a loop of what society says.
Right.
If you know what's best for you, do what's best for you. In native cultures, they used to have something called the fourfold way, which was basically based on the seasons and times of day and how you best related to nature. And how you best related to nature was when you were to do your most effective work. And I think that as much as we can, we are in a structured society, as much as we can, we need to bring that and take that empowerment back.
I think that's really interesting. And you're right. I mean, obviously, we live in a different day and age, but it doesn't mean that we can't bring in certain touch points from other eras or even from other cultures that could possibly help us, right, to create a more of a hybrid situation that might be more productive or help us to manage around other things, that we're facing in life. I think it's really important. Too many people were sort of turned out into the wild, so to speak, unarmed. We learn a lot of things in school, skill sets, right? But they're more things like, how to do math or how to do, computer science, right? How to build things, how to read, how to write. But we don't really learn any of the people skills or the personal development skills that we really need. And it's just terribly overlooked. It's unfortunate.
It really is unfortunate because, communication is how we relate to each other, and we don't know how really to truly communicate with others, and meeting them where they're at. So I think that, what you're saying is 100% correct.
Yeah, it's really valuable when companies invest in training their staff in this, and you see it a lot more in industries that are very heavily into the hospitality side of thing or customer facing, where that's a very big part of what they do. You'll see that there are a lot of training. I notice this when I'm at a hotel or when I'm on an airline or something. You can see where they've done a lot of training, where I'll be overhearing a conversation and I'll be like, wow, like this person is so smooth in how they handled it. I'm literally taking notes, like things I need to remember when I'm facing a similar situation. Like, okay, wow, that was a good way that they approached that. You know what I mean? They diffused the situation. Whereas, I might come into it guns blazing, and that necessarily achieves the goal that I may want. So yeah, it's really so valuable to learn these skills.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is what I do inside of organizations is help, emerging leaders as well as senior leaders with communication, leadership development skills, but more of those soft skills because, what people don't realize is that as you advance in your career, your technical skills net out, right?
Yeah,
Like an accountant, good accountant is a good accountant, a good lawyer is a good lawyer. It's actually your soft skills are four times more important to your career advancement. It's about how you make people feel. And everyone knows that person at the office who doesn't get any work done, but everyone loves them because they make
right.
everyone feel great, right? Rather than the other person who's doing all the work, but they don't have any interpersonal or extrapersonal communication skills, and no one likes them or no one sees them. So, you're correct. It is all about how you make people feel. That Angela Maya slogan about people don't remember what you say, it's that what you make them feel. It's so true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That really is the truth, honestly. Now, how can someone strengthen their executive presence in a practical way on a daily basis?
First and foremost, I would say is one of the things that you can do to practice your or increase your executive presence is begin to work on your communication. And the first piece of working on your communication is starting to study your body language because 55% of what we do is nonverbal and how we communicate. People do not realize how they come across in Zoom meetings, how they come across in meetings, how they come across sitting in the office. And there's so often where I'm doing a one-on-one coaching engagement, and the person is like, well, I got feedback that I'm not approachable. So a piece of advice that I give is take your iPhone, take your camera, sit it up on record, and record how you are throughout the day. What do you look like? What are you giving? What's the energy that you're putting off?
Mm,
It's going to take a lot of time, yet you can start to begin to practice to change how you appear even when you're resting. Like resting bee face isn't appropriate. There are things that you can do to change. I'm a firm believer that just because you label yourself, it doesn't stop there. What are you doing after to switch? Another thing that I would suggest is there's a great book, cannot remember the author off the top of my head, called Crucial Conversations.
mm,
It is a book around how do you have just that crucial conversations because so often people avoid communication. They are
mm.
not clear in what they want. So I would say first and foremost, start off with that. How's your tone impacting other individuals? EQ. EQ is the way to go, right? What is your relationship management? What's your self management? All of these things to me are where leaders need to start because as we become more and more automated and have more and more AI and our jobs feel more honestly transactional and it's more and more and more gimme, 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 do, 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 that human touch of, again, how you make someone feel, how you engage with them is going to matter more than ever mattered before. And leaders who want to, I would say, be future ready need to really invest in their quote unquote soft skills.
Yeah, very important. Really, it's just the kind of thing that when you hear it, it makes sense, and then it's so easy to not do it, right? Because you're not sure what to do or it seems so intangible. So, yeah, it is. It's good to get the insight from a person like yourself and be able to sort of have a program or at least a toolkit of things that we can use or at least start to practice that will help move us in that direction.
And there's so much out there. I would say maybe even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there was less democratization of resources. A great resource for you if you're interested in learning and want to continue to grow are master classes. Get a subscription to
Right.
master class. Like there's so many things on communication, team building, leadership where you can, put yourself in the game. I think one of the things that I've noticed in working with leaders that's a little different, especially when I'm inside of orgs, I'm not talking about the one-on-one leaders that reach out to me individually, but when I'm inside of orgs is that, about 20, 30 years ago, if you wanted a promotion, that person went to night school, right? They got their MBA, they took the extra certificate. Something shift where people just felt entitled. Like I've been here long enough, I need to do it.
Right.
And I'm working with someone who we're developing into a senior leader at an org. And I started asking, well, what books have you read? What podcasts? What? Nothing, 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 nothing. And it was kind of like, so where did you think you were going to develop this skill set? And why do you think you should move to that next level if you're not taking your development into your own ownership? And that's what I'd say to everyone. There is no excuse anymore. The resources are there. It's cheap, it's easy, or you can pay as much as you want for it. Your leadership is your own ownership. Your happiness is your own. Go out and find it. It's not only because you deserve it, but we actually impact people around us. And if the world were a lot more present and individuals knew how to communicate with themselves kindly and with others, I really do know for a fact that we'd have a better human experience.
Yeah, that's really so true. And I can say, from my own experience, and having learned a little bit about this and try to practice it, it's that, yeah, when I take the time to pause and think things through and sort of calm down and go about things more methodically, yeah, absolutely, you get a better result, you're more calm, everything about it is so much better. So yeah, what you're saying really is it's very valid. It's something that we all need to do, but like I said before, we tend either to just not bother or aren't sure, right? How to go about it.
And another pick, a little quick, technique is, and anytime something happens and you notice your thermometer, your thermostat internally rising, go to question instead of
Mm,
conclusion. Instead of, trying to find out or solve a problem, go to question. What's right about this that I'm not seeing? What's right about this that I'm not getting? How can I look
right.
at this in a different way? How can this benefit me? Because the question is the answer. And the question isn't to answer, it's to open greater possibility.
Mm,
When the mind is able to open possibility and create new neural networks, it calms the nervous system, but it also allows you to be creative, to go into problem solving rather than doom and gloom. So it's just those little things of, and anyone can learn it. Remember, I am a coach. I coach my leaders and I coach my clients into these things. It's not going to happen overnight.
right.
It does take time, right? I always say that these concepts are simple in theory, not easy in practice, right? Yet anything that we really want and we plan and we put into our lives, we can have. So if you really want this and you begin to institute 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes twice a week, 30 minutes of learning this new way of being in control of your mindset, imagine what imagine what returns you'll have.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's the one mindset shift that can immediately improve how a leader shows up and performs?
Boom. So I would say stop performing leadership and start embodying leadership. So a lot
Ah,
of
okay.
leaders are exhausted because they're trying to look confident instead of developing internal confidence and emotional steadiness. They don't show up vulnerable. They're the know-it-all. Like
Mm,
being able to be vulnerable and to create that space that I am a human being too is embodying leadership, because true leaders are not perfect. They don't know all of the answers, but they know how to ask questions. And also the reason is that your identity drives your leadership way more than your skills. So if you are operating from proving, from trying to be perfection or fear and control, it nothing is going to improve. So you got to really think about my communication. What's my decision making like? Do I follow through? Do I show up with confidence and trust? And these human skills, again, the emotional intelligence, the adaptability, the self awareness, that's the competitive advantage. So if you want to make that shift, it's stop trying to be a leader, embody it. Get the EQ, show it up. There's a great book by Brene Brown, Brave Leadership. Be brave in your leadership. That's the one thing I think people can do in order to shift.
yeah, I think that's fantastic. Well, Courtney, you've shared so many great points and insights, and really, this has been like its own little mini master class. um,
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I think everybody listening to this has really taken away at least something, if not many things. I'm going to have all the details where people can connect with you, either in the show notes, if people are listening to this as a podcast, or if they're listening to it as a video, it'll be in the description area. So I think people will have their own questions and want to reach out to you. But, thank you so much for joining us today on A Seat at the Table and just sharing so many fantastic insights. Thanks for being with us here today on A Seat at the Table. If you'd like to see some of the other episodes, head on over to our podcast website at seat.fm. That's SEAT.fm. There's also a link here in the show notes. And if you're thinking that you'd like to be a guest on the show, you'll find information on how to apply there as well. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Jane Singer, and I will see you in the next episode.